If you are a little scared to hop on board, because there is quite a bit that we covered and it can be a little intimidating at first, fortunately, we've done all the hard work for you and we've worked hard with our community to make an ultimate hydroponic system.
You're listening to How to Hydroponic with Ryan and Tessa.
This is episode 10, our summary episode, and we're going to go over all the highlights. And so this is a final episode of the How to Hydroponics Season 1. In this one, we're going to highlight everything and just really go over everything that we covered. And we're going to start with just how great hydroponics is.
Throughout this series, we've explored why hydroponics is so amazing, and that is largely because it is the best way you can grow indoors. So when you're growing outdoors, you have to kind of deal with the soil, and that's not as big of a problem because there's this ecosystem that keeps the soil in a place where it can constantly give nutrients to your plants.
And then we kind of just covered how revolutionary hydroponics is. It allows you to grow anywhere all year round, and this is really going to solve a lot of problems we are facing with our damaged food chain. And it's going to allow us to grow locally no matter where we live. So if you live somewhere where there's 8 months of winter, minus 40, you can still produce food and grow your own food at a local level.
And you can do this because when you grow hydroponically, especially indoors, you control all of those elements. You have grow lights that replace the sun, and then you can give water and nutrients to the roots constantly, which allows you to create this perfect ecosystem that grows plants really, really fast.
There is a lot of misconceptions out there about hydroponics, and we kind of covered and went and dispelled a lot of the myths. One of them being that food grown in hydroponics doesn't have a lot of nutrients compared to that grown in soil. They're actually the same. And another one is the hydroponic nutrients, it's only synthetic.
Mm-hmm.
And that you can have synthetic man-made nutrients, although there's a lot of other options, the most common one being all natural, and that's derived of salts and minerals.
Also, hydroponics isn't going to break your bank when it comes to the electricity bill, and it's not going to create mold inside your house, especially when you're growing in a small scale environment.
Now it's how do hydroponics works, and so at its core, all hydroponic systems are going to have these 5 things. You're going to have light, and that is going to be crucial for the plants to photosynthesize. You want to provide them with grow lights, and that's just going to provide the plants with the proper spectrum.
You're going to need nutrients. So this can be a variety of either 1, 2-part, as well as there's organic, all natural, or synthetic. And you just want to make sure that you follow the directions, provide the right ratio for the plants, and they'll need that if you want them to grow.
Next is a water distribution mechanism, and this can be done passively through a material or a capillary action, or it can be done actively, and that's just with electricity like a pump.
And you're going to need oxygen in that system or oxygen distribution. And that can also be done passively, and that's through a waterfall effect with the churning of water, or actively with an air pump.
Next, and the last one, is grow media. And this is going to be add structure to your plant and keep it in place. And the most common ones that we covered were going to be rock wool, there are clay pellets, and then you also have a biodegradable option, hemp.
So when you're getting started in hydroponics, you want to ask yourself mainly these 2 questions, which is, what do you want to grow and how much of it do you want to produce? And this is going to help you decide what type of system is going to fit your needs.
Yes, and the different types of systems out there is you're going to be having your NFT, and this is just a thin film of water going through channels.
Then you're going to have deep water culture. This is sort of the big basin of water that has the roots inside of it. Lots of room for the roots to grow. Great for large plants.
You have aeroponics, and that is where the roots are just suspended in air, and then you have misters that provide the water and nutrients to the roots.
You'll have ebb and flow. That's sort of a flood and drain method, sort of a breathing motion of the water filling up the basin and then draining off. Also great for oxygen and water ratio, but a lot of moving parts.
Then you have the most basic one, and that is the cracky system. It is passive. It's one of the best for beginners to just dip your toes in hydroponics, and that is you pretty much just fill a container with the proper water, nutrients and air ratio, and then you just put your plant in there and let it do its thing.
So then we moved on to the essential elements of lighting. So a big part is you need to use grow lights and not just any old household light. And we're kind of focused largely on the red and blue spectrums of light.
And then we went into the difference between fluorescents, which are just cheap. They don't produce a lot of light, or they don't. Sorry, they do produce a lot of. They don't produce a lot of heat. And then we have LEDs, and these are becoming more popular. Because of their popularity, you do need to make sure that you're getting proper quality ones. The pros with them is they can really narrow in on the light spectrum that plants can use. They can be very expensive.
And then finally, HID, which are very powerful lights, great if you have a large canopy, but they also produce a lot of heat, and they also can be pretty expensive. It's also important to look at the wattage of those lights for the amount of area that you're growing. You want about 40 watts per square foot, and consider around 600 par, which is another element of light searching or light research that you should be considering.
Yes. Next thing is going to be water quality and what type of water you want to use, and that is going to be affecting the plant's growth if you use bad quality water.
So we focus largely on a term we call the empty bowl, and that's going to have to do with how clean your water is. You want to be starting off with an empty bowl whenever you start baking something, and in the same case you want pure water anytime you start, because you're going to be adding things and you want to make sure that you're only adding to the water what you intend to, and if there's a whole bunch of mystery in it, it's going to really affect your garden.
So reverse osmosis water or distilled water, that is the empty bowl. That is the number one water you want to use if you can. You can use tap water depending on where you live and how it is filtrated. Or
Filtered?
Filtered, that's the one. How it is filtered and treated. That is going to be a bowl with a little bit of stuff stuck on it. And then there's well water. We highly recommend you avoid this. And it's just a lot of work, and that's just because it is a bowl full of ingredients, and then you're trying to add stuff to it.
So we also mentioned the importance of oxygen. That is something that your plants need, and they need it badly. And this is something that's usually going to be found in the water. So you can, if there's not sufficient oxygen rather, this can lead to a lot of issues as you're growing.
Ways to put oxygen into the water is just going to be natural or passive way, and that's just that water flow action. Or you can get an aerator that pumps air into the water.
Finally, you want to make sure that the temperature of your water is in that safe range, which is around the 18 to 24 degrees Celsius or the 65 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. We also talked about nutrients. Nutrients is very important in hydroponics. There's 1 part, 2 part, and 3 part. They both kind of have their role. As they get more complicated, it's more steps, but it often leads to less maintenance long term.
The nutrients is the plant's food. There is 16 elements that the plants need to grow, and they're split up into macro nutrients, and these are ones that they need in very large quantities: nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, and it has 4 other ones. And then there's the micronutrients, and they're just as important and just as crucial, but they need it in very, very small amounts. And those are going to be like your zinc, your iron, your boron. There's 9 elements of them.
And finally, there was a mention of pH. So pH, we didn't want to get too complicated, and that's why we used a grocery store method of explaining it. But probably the easiest way is just keep your pH between 5.5 and 6.5. That's going to allow your plants to have access to all of the nutrients it needs. And when it starts to fall outside of that range, you're going to be starting to put plexiglass in between that nutrients and your plant. So even though it is in the water, they can't access it.
And then we shared a very unpopular opinion, and that's with EC, or electroconductivity, is don't bother. On a small scale, it adds complexities, and it is not necessary. It doesn't really give you a lot of information, other than it's your reservoir or your water solution is going to be in high concentration or has a high electroconductivity, or it's going to be diluted, and that's just going to show in low conductivity, but it's not necessary.
Exactly. And then finally, it was choosing the right spot for your hydroponic system. And this is actually very important. You want to make sure that you have a place that doesn't have huge fluctuations in temperature, as well as it doesn't have something that's constantly adding heat or pulling heat away from it. You want to make sure that there's great accessibility so you can always maintain and do maintenance on your plant, as well as adding water and stuff. And it's just not a chore or a bear to actually do the day-to-day tasks that might be needed on your hydroponic system.
So as we shared this, you guys, hydroponics is more than a growing method. It's actually going to be a revolutionary approach to sustainability and kind of localize our food distribution and our food crops. It's going to be amazing. And so make sure you hop on board with it.
Yes, and if you are a little scared to hop on board, because there is quite a bit that we covered and it can be a little intimidating at first, fortunately, we've done all the hard work for you, and we've worked hard with our community to make an ultimate hydroponic system. Now, the best thing about this is this can take you to that next level while allowing you to have all the flexibility to grow kind of whatever you want, when you want, all year round.
So we've designed, it's called the Eden Tower, and it takes a beginner that knows nothing. They can have great success the first garden that they've ever grown, and you can grow with it and become, I don't know, a master hydroponic and allow that to grow with you because it has universal parts. So you can interchange parts, and as technology improves, you can improve your system.
One thing that makes the system very unique compared to anything else on the market is there's no refill. So although it is kind of plug and play, you just drop a seed in the cup, and we've developed it in a way that that's all you have to do. It'll germinate from there and grow your plant. You don't have to buy a fancy refill or anything from us. You can use different medias, you use your own seeds, and the cups that we use are completely reusable. And that means that instead of it costing you $3, $4, $9 per plant, it's costing you pennies because you just have to buy seeds.
Yes, it's super simple. Everything just clicks into place like Lego. The really cool thing is we actually made it expandable. So if you want to grow your garden, start with 3 layers. And then without having to buy a brand new system, you can just stack another layer on top and grow your garden vertically that way.
And that also means that you can kind of start very small at a beginner level, and as you start to get more experience, you want to grow way more stuff, you can keep expanding without having to buy a whole nother garden. And that's big because space is a big problem when it comes to growing hydroponically.
Yes, and we provide the perfect space for plants. We actually perfectly space them out, and you can grow 4 per layer, and it's 16 on a 4-tier. But don't let that deter you, because it will grow more food than other systems that claim to grow 30 to 75 plants in the same area. And that's just because we provide the perfect space for them to grow large and lush, and they're not competing with each other.
And that's not all, because as we were getting into hydroponics, we found it very frustrating to look for answers and there's not much out there. And you kind of feel like you get the system and now you're on your own. And we really wanted to change that experience for customers. So when you get a system, that's not the end of your journey. That's actually the very beginning of your journey. And you're going to have us and our community to help guarantee that you succeed.
Yes. So if you like these podcasts, there's a lot more information where it comes from. Our community is incredible, and so any questions that you have, you can ask and you will get answers.
And the system actually comes with another book that'll go into everything that we talked about now in details. You don't have to memorize it all. It's always going to be readily available. People kind of call it their little hydroponic Bible. So
yes. So if you're ready to start growing your own food, start growing hydroponically, we recommend the Eden Tower is an amazing start for you, and you can get it on our website at hopeinnovation.ca.
yes, and thank you so much for listening to our How to Hydroponics podcast. Stay tuned, because we are planning another season, and we're hoping to get more into the actual nitty-gritty of hydroponics. So that's going to be the things that you do from germination all the way to harvest. So then you're going to be much more experienced on some of the struggles, as well as some of the tricks that we in our community have learned that make it so much easier.
Make sure you like and subscribe to us. If you liked this series, make sure you share it with your friends and everyone else you know. And yeah, we'll hopefully see you in series number 2.